There's a beautiful writing in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna on page 178 in the chapter called The Master and Vijay Goswami. And it's a wonderful teaching about being able to hear the voice of God. In the Eternal Companion, a book by Swami Brahmananda, there's a wonderful account in there of him not making any plans for himself until he had gotten the okay from the divine. And one of the young novices was sitting there and asked him, Maharaj, how come you don't always give us an answer on the days that you're going to leave and what your plans are? And he says, because I don't make plans without the approval of the divine. And the brahmachari was like, well, all of us are like that, but we just think, oh, God approves of this, so that I should go ahead and do this. And Brahmananda looks at him quite gravely and says, no, it is not that way. I tell you that God talks to me, which is a startling statement, especially in this day and age, and certainly one that not many people will trust. But when you look at the character and life of Swami Brahmananda, he had no reason to lie about those things. But then the brahmachari says, well, you actually then talk to God. And he says, truly, I tell you the truth. I do not make plans for myself or for my life without the express approval of the divine. So for those who are interested in having that conversation with the beloved, to be able to hear the voice, this verse from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is for you. God is realized as soon as the mind becomes free from attachment. Whatever appears in pure mind is the voice of God. That which is pure mind is also pure buddhi, or pure intellect. That again is pure Atman, pure spirit, pure God. Because there is nothing pure but God. And this idea of purity, again, is the lack of me and mine, the lack of selfishness, the expression of a pure love. But in order to realize God, one must go beyond dharma and adharma, good and bad, right and wrong, good and evil. One has to go beyond these pairs of opposites in all things, through a strenuous practice, actually. But he says here that the mind must become free from attachment. That means you have to realize that you are not this mind, and that the contents of this mind do not describe you and have literally nothing to do with you. They're like the thoughts of a character in a dream. Compared to the dreamer, those thoughts are meaningless. There is nothing there in the dream that has anything to do with the dreamer. All the things that are happening are not happening to the dreamer. It only happens for the dreamed. And so we have to maintain a pure mind, a silent mind, a mind that isn't running around thinking thoughts that we think are our thoughts, thinking thoughts that we behave, that we obey, and that we enact, making plans that we enslave ourselves to. But to understand that the mind is just an organ that excretes thought, and to come to an understanding through observation, not through a blind faith, but through observation, a careful discernment of our inner life, paying attention to how the mind works, what our relationship is with mind and with body. And by paying attention to this subtle inner being, inner self, we come to sort ourselves out. That's what realization is. We realize that we're not a body and a mind. We realize that we are the dreamer and not the dreamed, that the whole is contained within us. We are not in the whole. So this is what that mind free from attachment is. It's a very high state he's talking about. But in that silence of the mind, a mind free of egoism, within that pure mind, the voice of God can be heard. Anything that appears spontaneously within that pure mind is the workings of the universe, is the workings of God, the working of the divine. That which is pure mind is also pure buddhi, pure intellect, pure knowing. And that again is pure Atman, the spirit, the self, undivided, that there is one Atman that has become all of this. Because there is nothing pure but God, there is nothing that's completely devoid of me and mine, except the divine herself. In order to realize God, one must go beyond this duality, this dharma and adharma, this right and wrong, light and dark, all of these pairs of opposites. And that happens actually when one silences the mind. It's because the mind is a relative tool and enforces relativity in order to work. But God is beyond duality, beyond relativity. God is the absolute unchanging. He is the original measurement from which all things are measured. You see, in a relative world, something has to be absolute. Otherwise, there's nothing that you can know about a relative world. It's all simply comparison. And so that divine absolute, that unchanging absolute, has to exist as the center post for the relative tent to be extended around it, to be built off of it, to be measured from it. So listen quietly to the silence of the mind and find your greatest companion, present, always perfect, who has become all things and filled them with life and love and wisdom.